Welcome in again, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the R&D Sports Report. My name's Dishmond, and I'm joined here, as I always am, by Rylee. Rylee, how's it going this evening?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
Oh, it's March. How can you be any better?
True.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Favorite time of the year.
Psh, always.
I mean, not only is it my birthday month, but we have a lot of basketball happening in the month of March.
Well, one, I just want to say happy birthday to you, bro.
Well, it's a little early, but thank you. I appreciate
got
that.
you.
Yeah. So, we're going to kind of spend a good portion of this episode just kind of covering a bunch of different topics here and there, see what we can grasp. And what we're going to kind of first start off with here is, of course, my favorite month of the year. Why not?
Oh, yeah.
We have the Big Ten tournament that just completed on Sunday. And we have all the other kind of major, so to speak, basketball tournaments happening this week, and you have the ACC, the SEC, right, the Pac-12. There are a few of the smaller ones that have already completed.
Right, with the big ones, I should say that they are going to be very exciting.
Well, you know, you even talk about even the small ones. I was watching, let's see, today is Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday. I had to get my days in line. And I was watching Lincecum versus Florida Gulf Coast University. Right, the Eagles, they've been in like the past few years. They were, a few years ago, they got the nickname of like Dunk City or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I just never really paid attention to them much.
So it was them and Lincecum was ahead by 32 points at one time in the game.
Wow.
And the reason, like, I wasn't even watching it at first because I was doing other things, and I got on my phone, I scrolled on Twitter, and someone said something about the game that is all of a sudden down to 6.
What?
So Florida Gulf Coast got it down to 6, and of course then I started tuning in, and probably with a lot of other people. But they got it down to 6, but they couldn't really, like, break that barrier. Yeah. Right? Lincecum, like, they sped Lincecum up a little bit, and they made some errors themselves, but that's why this is the best time of the year.
Oh, yeah, because it brings out the clutch in everybody.
Well, it not only do some players find their clutch mode, right, but at the same time, like, you have this randomness that is continually happening.
Yeah.
So that, you know, that's just Sunday. That's just this Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
March the 4th, all that happens, right?
Wow.
And the Big Ten tournaments, you know, goes on and has theirs early. And I don't know. I don't quite understand it. Like, I don't see what it really advantage it does for you to have it early, other than they would just kind of complete their tournament and Selection Sunday would happen. So unless somebody was in the Big Ten tournament championship that wouldn't have made it without winning the championship, it doesn't really affect the bracket, and we've been told that by the selection committee before. So, like, I guess that's why you moved up, but now they're waiting. You know, you got, 7 days? And if you got bounced early, you may have up to 10 days that you have to sit around and wait to see if you're going to make the tournament. And if you are, like, that just seems like a long layoff.
Yeah.
For the players.
Really does. I'm not sure how I feel about them having it a week early, though. Like, I mean, I could see why, but I don't know. I'm just not
like,
really
I can
kind of
see the benefits of it, right?
Right.
With like, having that time off, the players are able to rest. But at the same time, like, I know when I go to play basketball and I stop for a little bit, and then I try to play right, everything's stiff.
Right, and you're kind of rusty.
Right, and so, like, the problem is, like, if these teams get into the big dance, so for Michigan State, right, they have a whole week before they even get to see Selection Sunday. And not only that, but the games, most likely, even for them, right, they're not going to be, obviously, in these play-in games that would happen on a Tuesday. They're going to be in the Thursday, Friday games. So you're talking you could be off almost 12 days, which is great because then you have practice, you have time to recover. But at the same time, like,
you're not really on your gameplay kind of style, and that I don't agree with that. I feel like you should have it with everything else that's going on, so we can kind of stay up with the hype. Like, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only argument that could be really kind of made for it in a sense of like why you would really do it is that, well, here we're going to give the committee what's already happened in our Big Ten tournament. And, now, like, what happens here will actually matter towards Selection Sunday. But at the same time, we're all human. Who's to say that whatever happens in the Big Ten tournament, right, couldn't be forgotten by one of the, or by multiple people in the selection committee, right?
Right, you pretty much just stole the words out of my mouth. That's pretty much what I was saying.
Well, but I mean, you think about it. Like, I forget a lot of stuff in a week.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you're on the selection committee, you probably write stuff down, your thoughts and all that, but you may forget to write something down, right? And then, like I understand the premise of it, doing it early. Because if you had a team, I'm trying to think of just a random team in the Big Ten that probably won't make it.
I can't.
Minnesota. Hang on. Let me look at the recent bracketology here.
Okay.
This is great here, isn't it?
Oh yeah. It's fun, right? Like.
Well,
I say we create a song.
Create a song.
There we go. Dun, 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 dun. Wait, no, that's like.
We need like some music here as I go to scroll through and try to.
Yeah, like some.
All right,
like
so I don't see
music.
right now. I'm not seeing Minnesota yet, and I don't think they would make it. I honestly can say I haven't really followed Minnesota basketball this year.
Maybe because that makes sense.
Well, all right, so Minnesota I didn't see in the recent bracketology. And so, I imagine they're going to be nowhere close to the tournament. So, let's say Minnesota goes on some crazy run, right? And they make it to the NCAA championship game. But if they don't win it, right, have they done enough in the tournament to make them into a tournament team? If it were on Selection Sunday, the mind of the selection committee on Minnesota would already be made up. But if Minnesota wins it, it doesn't matter either way, right?
Right.
And so I think, for some team, like I still just don't know where it makes a whole lot of sense. That's what I'm having. Like I'm trying to rationalize it with you,
right?
And I'm still not grasping like where I can make it a lot of sense.
I feel like there really was no reason. It was just kind of okay, let's do it because why not? And that's I'm just not too sure about that. And like you said, I'm kind of confused about it as well.
Well, and I do think it was to maybe give them extra time, but also kind of show the selection committee what happened in the tournament. Because, when we get to this time of year, there is a lot of randomness. There are those teams that make a run, through their conference tournament and get that automatic bid for the tournament and, knock somebody else in that league out. So, because, a lot of these smaller conferences only get one team in.
Yeah.
So, Florida Gulf Coast is not going to get in because Linson got in, most likely, and I didn't see that anywhere on a recent bracketology, so.
Right, the bigger name teams are going to be in there, not like.
Well, because and here's the sad thing. Even the smaller teams, if they're better, we all know what this is driven by, right?
Right. Money.
Exactly. And, if you had a team with the stature of a Michigan State, a Duke, North Carolina, right? The bigger name programs where their fan bases are larger in a sense, right? They bring more money with them if we can sneak them into the tournament somehow.
Right, because no one's going to know what Florida Gulf
Coast.
Whoever that is.
Yeah.
Like,
So and they've made a name for themselves over the past few years being in the tournament here and there. And I think, honestly, their mascot's the Eagles.
That's cool.
Like, I'm taking a stab in the dark. I think that's what it is. But I couldn't with 100% tell you, oh, yeah, it's the Eagle. But
mascots are awesome. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, mascots are
it depends.
Awesome.
Do you remember a few years ago with the Pelicans, when they transitioned from the Hornets to the Pelicans, they had that one mascot that was so creepy before he got reworked? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't really think of,
the old...
Like, I've seen the picture in my
head. I was going to say, the
original
original Pelican was so creepy.
It was.
And then they went through this whole thing of reworking, like, his acting like he got plastic surgery done, and they debuted a new head for the Pelican. But
cool.
A good mascot can help, and a bad mascot can kind of hurt. So
right.
Well, and some of them you're like, what? How is that a mascot?
Well, right, like, and some don't even match up to the school. It's just like they just pick something and go with it. And I'm like,
I swear
why?
For some of them, they just took a dart and threw it on a board with a bunch of names on it.
I mean, they probably did, to be honest with you.
But we have the Big Ten tournament now completed, and Michigan won. Right, they beat Michigan State. Michigan State still thought, though, to be a very high seed in the NCAA tournament. But this time, like Thursday and Friday, Saturday and Sunday, you can almost tell where I will be, and that is glued in front of a TV, right?
Right.
Even with conference tournaments, this is a time where the smaller conferences get some time on the big stage, right? On the big time networks. And it just, for me, it makes it exciting and makes the games exciting too, I think, because the kids are playing up a higher level than normal.
Right. Well, I mean, it's like they give them that energy and that, I guess, courage to play better and to want and also get better, and I feel like it gives the NCAA, that energy. And that's what makes, a tournament so much fun.
Well, and even these conference tournaments become fun by that randomness, right? It's a one game, right, tournament. It's not like it's the NFL playoffs. It's not the NBA playoffs where, best of 7. And I guess the NFL originally was a bad choice. One game as well. But now that I think about it after it came out of my mouth. But, oh well. MLB. That's probably what I was more thinking of. But, nah. So there's, been a lot of NFL free agency talk today. But we'll get into that later on. But, Major League Baseball, you have a 7-game series. NBA, it goes 5 then to 7. And, you have a chance if you have a bad game to recover from it.
Yeah.
If you have a bad game this time of the year, you're done. Your season is done. And I think that's what brings some of the excitement to this time of year.
And also some rage. I will throw that out there.
A whole lot of rage.
Oh, yeah.
It also brings some couch burnings and...
yeah. Cars burning.
Yeah, other stupid things sometimes. I've never understood that. Why would you go celebrate a team's win by burning your couch? Unless it's like marked already for, couch burning and you got a new one last year or something. I don't know.
I'm just saying, you got $500 couch. I'm not throwing that sucker out. Why would you want to do that? That's just a stupid idea.
I mean, yeah, and let's be honest, a lot of that is poor decisions.
True.
A little bit of overindulgence and maybe a favorite beverage that impairs our judgment at points.
True.
So, I can see where that would happen, but if
whatever makes them happy, I guess.
I guess whatever makes you happy at the time, I guess.
Go for it.
You just go for it. You burn that couch.
As long as it's not my couch.
Yeah, don't come after my couch, right? Don't come after any of my stuff. You ain't burning it.
No.
I will punch you in the face if you try to do that. So
throw you my dumpster, my trash can.
You can have all my trash in the can. You can burn that. I don't care.
No kidding. Go for it.
But let's take a look here, Rylee, at a little bit of the most recent bracketology here. The projected brackets that they have here, and what we're looking at here is on ESPN. And so our 1 seeds right now in the South would be Virginia. The West is Kansas. The East is Villanova. And the Midwest is Xavier. Now, we've looked over kind of these regions a little bit. If you had to say, if these were the exact brackets, now we know that these aren't the exact brackets. These are just a guess from a lot of research and number crunching. Which bracket would you say is the easiest? Which region?
I don't know. See, I'm looking here, and it's just, I don't know. The West is definitely difficult. I don't know. I want to say it's like between the East and the South, but I'm not too sure.
See, for me, it's
I'd say Midwest probably.
I think I agree. I think Midwest is kind of the easier. The top 4 seeds in the Midwest, as of updated today, bracketology of March the 5th. Xavier the 1, Purdue the 2, Tennessee the 3, Wichita the 4. Now, if I'm looking at those top 4 seeds, I'm looking at Tennessee and Villanova Tennessee and Xavier, excuse me. Those two, I think, have a chance. So it'd be Xavier Harvard as the 116. The 8-9 would be Virginia Tech St. Mary's. The 5-12 is Clemson, Loyola, Chicago. The 4-13 would be Wichita, Vermont, which, let me just stop there for a second. That Vermont team, I think, could be a sleeper.
It could be. I haven't seen the game. I've seen some highlights and some talk about them, but I mean, you never know. And that's where the excitement comes in with the NCAA tournament. And you just never know what could happen, because there's every time I fill out a bracket for the tournament,
you might as well just go ahead and rip it up and throw it away.
Exactly, because you're like, okay, this team's going to make it, which, whatever the highest team, of course, you have going to the NCAA championship. So, every time I'm wrong, dude. It's so frustrating. And I'm just like, why? Like, why does Vermont have to beat Wichita State? Like, like, you're just surprising me here. Stop it.
Well, and then you try to predict these upsets, and then it runs chalk.
Exactly.
Right? And it's like, really, of all times I try to pick an upset, it runs chalk.
You know what's even worse is when you place a bet on it. Like, that's even worse, because your bracket's screwed.
Well, and like, so many people this time of year, right, will get in different pools and try to win their brackets, and, like, just that one game can screw you up so bad, because, like, let's say you put Tennessee all the way to the Final Four.
Right.
Right, random team totally. But if they don't get past Montana, none of that matters.
Right, and you're like, pretty much your whole bracket.
Well, because right there, if you had Tennessee to the Final Four, you're already down one Final Four team. Right? Automatically. Right at the well, technically the second round. That whole thing just confuses me.
And that's when you go cry. That's when you go cry.
No, that's when you grab your bracket, you wad it up, you like stick it in your mouth and start chewing it, because that's about the thing that makes it worth the most.
That's some hot sauce on it.
A little bit of hot sauce, and it'll actually be worth something then.
Yummy.
Oklahoma, man, they started the year off hot.
Yeah, they did.
Right, Trae Young started the year off hot. But I think what we saw and what we have seen, especially when he got into conference play, and this happens a lot in general, right? When you can get a second look at a superstar, right, that second game, they usually don't do as well, because the coaches already know from the first time that how they play. Right, when you're playing out of conference, when you're in that non-conference schedule, they only see you once. So they're doing their best, and if they can't figure it out that one game, well, then it's kind of tough. But if you beat somebody in conference, next time you better bet that they will be ready for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I honestly think the Midwest is the easiest.
Now, let me ask you, what do you think is the hardest? Which region do you think is the hardest?
I kind of lean towards the West.
Really?
Yeah, because the top 5 seeds in the West, and I know we only did the top 4 in the Midwest. In the Midwest, the 5 was Clemson. But in the West, they have it predicted right now that Kansas would be the 1, North Carolina the 2, Michigan State is the 3, the 4 is Arizona,
and Gonzaga
and 5 is Gonzaga. Now, if we just look at those 5, right, those are pretty tough.
Yeah.
But if you go just 1 seed more, you get a Kentucky team that seems to be, with the exception of this past Saturday at Florida, right, hitting their stride at the right time of the year.
I feel like they're getting back in the groove, really.
Well, it seems like they've kind of hit their path to success. But I mean, if you look at even the top 5, that's pretty tough. But if you add that 6th in there, even a Houston team you don't hear a lot about, but Kelvin Sampson has them rolling in Houston.
Right. I think my decision would have to be the East.
As hardest?
Yeah, for at least in my opinion, because you got Villanova at the number 1, you have Duke at the number 2, Michigan at the 3.
Michigan is playing like their best basketball of the year as well.
Yeah, and that's where the hardest comes in. Then you got the number 4, West Virginia, and Florida at the 5. Now, Michigan State's been really killing it this year, and I'm kind of excited to see how they do in the tournament. And I think it's going to be really exciting to see them play.
Now, if I were looking at this bracket, if this bracket were actually what they come out with on Sunday, and we'll be able to kind of break this down a little bit more and get into it a little bit more next week after these brackets have already come out, because we can kind of talk our way through it. But if I'm looking at the East, and I think you make a good case for it with their top 5, I think even if you look at their 11 seeds, it has it as a play-in game between UCLA and Alabama.
Right. Yeah,
Alabama is a team that could make a little bit of waves because, right, they have a great player in Colin Sexton, right, that they could rely on. And guards, typically, you see strong guard play usually runs through the tournament. So,
right.
The only one we've left out here is the South.
Now, I would say the South is difficult, but I don't think it's the hardest.
I don't either, because you have Virginia at the 1, Cincinnati now up to the 2, and I think that's after their impressive run here toward the end. Auburn the 3, the regular season SEC champ. The 4 is Texas Tech, and the 5 is Ohio State, which I feel like Ohio State's been quiet all year to be a 5. Like, I haven't really heard a whole lot about them.
But they could be another sleeper team. You really
I
never
tell
know.
you, though, this Texas Tech team, if you can get past, obviously you got to get past like Buffalo at the beginning, because you never know. And those 4-13, the 5-12s, that seems to be where most upsets happen.
Yeah.
But, Texas Tech has a chance that they could do it. Virginia last week just barely squeaked by Louisville.
Yeah, that was one crazy game.
Right. A Louisville team right on the border of making the tournament that will probably need a decent run in the ACC to cement themselves as a tournament team. Virginia has to have a crazy set of circumstances. A lane violation, and then moving on the inbound when you weren't supposed to, and then a 3 banked in at the end. Right? Like, it's a complete random, and they should have lost that game. But it's a complete random thing, and that, moments like that, honestly, are kind of what march is made for, right?
Oh yeah.
And
That's just it's just so exciting because you really never know.
well, and I feel like this even last week of February, right? Everything gets amped up so much in anticipation for the tournament, right? Everybody trying to get their best basketball, and you'll hear coaches when teams struggle at the beginning of the season, right? I'm not preparing them for November. I'm preparing them for March, right? We are working toward March.
Right.
And, yeah, that's the right coach speak to say. But that only works if your team is actually working towards March, right? If they are actually rolling in the right direction come March. And you see teams like a Michigan, right? They seem to be hitting their stride. Purdue you heard a lot about, but it seems like they've kind of gone by the wayside a little bit.
Well, I feel like they've gotten a little bit quiet as well.
Yeah, I agree. They lost out to Michigan in the Big Ten tournament. Michigan State seems to be doing pretty well, but at the same time, like, are those players' minds right with all that is surrounding that school? Whether it's all the stuff with the gymnast and the different allegations that are there on Michigan State, or the thing with Miles Bridges, that we had pop out, a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
I believe so.
See, look, I'm forgetting. I don't understand
exactly.
I don't understand how the selection committee, unless you're writing stuff down,
right,
is going to really remember what happened a whole lot in the Big Ten tournament.
Speak the truth.
But, I mean, honestly, besides like looking up on the internet and just looking there, like
you're just not
how the
remember.
game plays, like the score on the box score can be completely different than how the game was actually played.
Right.
So, get off that high horse, I guess. There, I'll get off my soapbox here.
Whew, we were getting a little high on that
I thought it was going to get a little rowdy in here. But we'll try to contain ourselves a little bit, but I just look forward so much to this time of year. Next week, when we look at this, we'll actually have the actual brackets in front of us that we can discuss. I'm gonna have to go. We'll have to go back and listen because once again, I've forgotten. We didn't think to write it down. Our Final Four picks. I know one of mine was Arizona, and I think another one was Duke, maybe Michigan State.
And I think the other one...
I think I said Xavier, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
I did say Xavier.
I think mine was Duke, Kentucky, Villanova, and I think Virginia. I can't honestly remember.
I don't know. We're one of the two of us will have to go back and look.
But either way, it should be exciting to figure out like what we think. Final Four wise.
Well, and that's the thing is like we made those so far ahead of where teams are playing now. Right? Teams are playing completely different now.
Oh yeah.
Than they were, weeks ago when we made that prediction. And so it'll be exciting to see, but I think the other thing that we have to take into account with getting to even a Final Four, right, is the path to get there.
Yeah.
Right? If the West held up like it is, where you could see a scenario where the 6th seed in Kentucky makes it to the Final Four, you could see where the 1 seed in Kansas would make it all the way to the Final Four.
I feel like we're sleeping on them as well, though.
Kansas?
Yeah.
I think so. I think it's also probably some of the sense that it just, like, the Big 12 is almost like the Kansas 12.
Yeah.
Right? It's been, 14 straight years that they've won the Big 12 championship.
Doesn't surprise me.
And it's just, like, they have competition. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Texas Tech is a really good team. But it's just like year after year, and I think we just kind of get just lulled to sleep by them, and they seem to also hit their stride now. But I think at the same time, like, maybe they don't have the biggest names right there at Kansas now as they have in the past, with an Andrew Wiggins and that.
Right.
But, sorry, I was reading an update here. Apparently we have a buzzer beater. if you can imagine that, in March, that is going to send Kent State to the MAC title game. So they'll be able to play for a chance at a berth in the NCAA tournament.
That's awesome.
Apparently, Kent State's Kevin Szabo goes coast to coast in a buzzer beater. I'll have to look at that video after we get done with this.
Who do they beat? Does it say?
It might.
Might.
Hang on. Let me look here.
See, this is like
this is what March is made for, right?
Exactly.
Once again,
the excitement is so real.
This is what March does for you. They beat Northern Illinois.
Good for them. Good for them.
Let's see. Let's watch it here. Oh, and he does go coast to coast. Oh, spin. Oh, wow.
What did he do, like a spin layup or something?
He did kind of like a spin and a layup.
So he finished with style. Wow. What a savage. That's just saying, get wrecked.
Here, there. Take a look at it there.
Okay.
Tell me what you think.
All right, here we go. He's going up. Wow. That's insane, bro. And then they all just, like, I'm claustrophobic, so if they all got on me, bro, I'd be like, get off of me.
Get off, you're crushing me. But, you know, that to me is like what, like if you think of March, like when I think of March, I don't think of spring and bunnies and flowers. I think of basketball. I think of college basketball taking over.
Buzzer beaters.
Exactly.
Crazy plays, highlights, dunks, everything you can think about in basketball is in March.
Well, and like, who is really going to remember what happened in November and December and even January?
What happened? I can't
remember. See,
exactly.
There we go again.
Like,
but you remember what happens in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Right? Bryce Drew, the head coach of Vanderbilt, is known for hitting a shot in March for Valparaiso when he played there.
Yeah, I remember.
You know, it runs on the opening for the tournament all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what you see all the time, right? Aaron Harrison made a name for himself in the tournament when he hit buzzer beaters for Kentucky game after game after game. Right? He hit a big one against, try to think of that order. But right in a 3-game span of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Louisville, right? He made a name for himself in the tournament. Steph Curry made a name for himself in the tournament. And that's what we'll see. The smaller school players, right? They make a name for themselves and have the ability to, when they play against bigger teams, right? Bigger named programs that don't have an option to turn them down, they can make a name for themselves in the tournament.
Right. They get known.
Well, and like, their talent is put on display, right? It's put on a higher pedestal, a higher platform at that. It's kind of like we had talked about, you know, the difference between going to the G League and and going to college, right? In college, you have the NCAA tournament and stuff like that to be able to help you to build your brand, to put your name out there. So it helps, you know, those smaller schools to get their name out. And I bet if you did some work and some analysis and some research, you could probably find that some of these smaller schools, I would say, have an uptick in enrollment if they have like a Cinderella run or a bigger run in the NCAA tournament.
And that's what I like about these small schools is, you know, it goes back to that exciting part is you never know if they're gonna get through. You never know, someone like Michigan, you know.
Well, I mean, in a school like a Vermont, let's be real. We all don't watch every single ounce of college basketball that happens and do analysis of it.
True.
Unless you have watched Vermont's games all year long, you have no idea how they play.
Nope. I
can't tell you what St. Bonaventure plays like.
Who is that? I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm just kidding. Right, exactly. Like, because, these bigger name schools, Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, Michigan State, Virginia, they are the ones that are always on national television. They are the ones that are on the ESPNs and the CBSs, of a Saturday afternoon, having their name put out there. The only kind of difference would be like the Big East Conference, the Villanobas, the Xaviers, the Creightons, that are able to be on Fox Sports 1, to get their name out there. But, St. Bonaventure is not going to be on national television unless they're playing a Duke or a North Carolina, Virginia in an early season game.
Now, I hear that you brought up like television stations. Now, I know this is not a huge thing, but being on certain stations can actually help a lot with getting known.
Well, and it does, and that's even the thing this time of year, right? Everyone is tuned in to the tournament. Nobody really cares about the NIT.
No.
As the joke goes, right? NIT stands for not in tournament. So, no one's really going to care about what happens there versus what happens in the NCAA tournament.
No.
So, it's obviously the bigger show and generates really the money for the NCAA all year round. So it'll be exciting to see come Sunday what these brackets look like, and to physically have them in our hands and go, wow, this region is actually tough, or this one, or oh no, they're all pretty even. They all seem to have their ups and downs.
Yeah.
Which is what the selection committee says they try to do. I don't believe them for a second. I fully think that they try to plan for matchups and ratings, right? Because ratings bring
money.
Exactly. So,
I think that's kind of jacked up, to be honest.
What?
Like, just them kind of using the NCAA just for money, or like the tournament just for money. Like, they don't really focus on making it the NCAA tournament.
Well, I think the thing is, like...
No, I could be wrong, but...
Well, I think, because it's, 68 teams now, I think what happens is they don't line them up 1 through 68 and then start just, like, the top 8, matching... Not even really that. I think it only should be the top 4. As far as, like, venues, right, where they would go... I think the top 4 should get the closest venue to them, and then whoever that fourth number 1 is, right, they should get the top number 2. Right. It should be the snake back and forth, and that's how you would make it even. Now, there might be some discrepancies in some teams of, being close, and you could use the playing games there. But, if you list them 1 through 68, well, then that 1 should end up playing probably this number 68 down here, right? And you go back and forth and kind of make it a little more even, so to speak.
Right.
But something we had just talked about, right, and we've discussed before, the NBA and the G League, right, reasons why you would go to college for a year even versus going to the G League. And we have some remarks here that could seem like it may be the end of the one and done in the NBA.
Now, I will say that excites me, but I feel like there's like a catch or something.
There is kind of a little bit of a catch.
Dagnabbit.
It's not necessarily like a plan to just eliminate altogether. They're apparently trying to put in place some measures to basically get the players in, maybe straight out of high school, but to work with them both on and off the court. And so in this article that Brian Windhorst wrote about this, apparently NBA Commissioner Adam Silver and some of his top advisors, right, they've engaged in listening and trying to gather this information for the months to come and to see what we're going to pitch here and there. And apparently it's not just adjusting the one-and-done rule, but more of a comprehensive plan to reopen the door to 18-year-olds, but to also kind of help them. And the plan apparently is expected to be the NBA actually starting relationships with elite teenagers while they're in high school.
What? So like they're gonna go to the G League?
Well, they would kind of try to get in with the player, just from what I kind of surmised, just kind of reading this, and we wouldn't know fully until the NBA says, "Hey, this is what we're gonna do." But an area where they haven't been is try to make relationships with some of these teenagers that they think could make the jump from high school to NBA. Or maybe do it within a season or something like that. And so you provide them with skills to help them develop both on and off the court, be able to enhance their skills on the court, but also to develop them to be able to adapt to the NBA atmosphere when they would arrive. But they talk about this area and talking to high schoolers, right? It's somewhere that they haven't really ventured before. And, out of high school, you're probably not physically ready, and you're probably not emotionally ready to make it straight to the NBA.
Yeah, that's a huge problem there.
And that's part of the reason why they did the one and done rule, and I think it kind of hasn't helped the NBA because these, they have to go to college or somewhere else, G League, whatever it is, and kind of work before they get up to the NBA. But at the same time, I think you have to kind of work on your G League itself to make it a better product and more enticing. Because in this article, right, it talks about the pay that some of these players would get, and the problem is that in the G League, players can earn a maximum of $26,000 per season.
Huh.
That's not that much.
No.
Right? That's not even really enough to live off of, even if it were just yourself. That's probably in a lot of states below the poverty line.
Well, time to grab a job at McDonald's and just joking. But.
Well, you joke, but
that's kind of
a lot of minor league baseball players, if you're not a bigger name or something and you're trying to make it, it can be rough, and in the offseason you have to work a construction job or something like that to be able to pay the bills.
Right. Now, I will say that I was kind of scared that if they were talking about, high schoolers going to the G League, I feel like it would take, especially if they were paying them, that it would take away from college basketball. But since you just said that kind of made me more happy because, if they did get paid, I don't know, let's say $100,000 a year, right?
How much?
$100,000.
That might make them go to the G League.
Right. I feel like it would take away from college basketball, and it'd be like, why would I want to go to college, not get paid, depending on who you are, but why would I want to go to college, not get paid, and then wait 4 years or 3, whatever, and then go to the NBA and finally get paid? You might as well just go to the G League.
Well, and that's the thing, even right now, if you wanted to go to the G League as an 18-year-old, you can. But you can only earn a maximum of $26,000 a year. But you could go overseas, kind of like Brandon Jennings did, Emmanuel Mudiay, Terrence Ferguson, right? Maybe college isn't quite your thing. You can't be, if you don't have the grades to do it. You can go play overseas, but you could make almost $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them made $1 million, and as much as $1 million, maybe a little bit less. But you can make good money going overseas and actually making a little bit of a name for yourself, and then be drafted. And so you have even some leagues maybe around the world that are starting to look into being able to make these roster spots available. Terrence Ferguson went to Australia and played, right? And he went there, and that, even in Australia, their Australian National Basketball League apparently just announced a Next Stars program, which creates roster spots for players who want to develop in Australia starting next season.
That's cool.
And so apparently reports are that it'll be a salary of 100,000 Australian dollars, which is roughly 78,000 US dollars. So, that's a good chunk of change to be able to go over there and play, even if it's just for a year, and kind of help develop yourself.
Well, and if you got the passion for basketball, you're gonna love it either way, whether it's got a bunch of money or not.
Well, and I mean, let's be honest. Like, some people aren't meant to go to college. Some people aren't meant to, to be in school, and some just can't do it. But the NBA, right? They've already tried working on this with their two-way roster contracts. A player, when they're in the G League, they earn pretty much $75,000 a year in the G League. Excuse me. But then when they go to the NBA, right, as that parent company, right, then they would make minimum salary in the NBA if they get called up. So you can kind of go up and down. But apparently there's a plan to kind of do this version, but for 18-year-olds. So you might start off in the G League, but then have the chance as an 18-year-old to work your way up to the NBA. And
now I'm not against the G League or high schoolers going to the G League. I just don't like. I don't know. I'm just not too sure about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it is important, though, to note that any of these options, these one and done rule being taken away, all of that is all contingent on making an amendment to the collective bargaining agreement between the players and the owners in the NBA. You would have to amend the current one because this one's not up until 2024. So you would have to have some discussion there to make that amendment, and both sides agree to add it. So I think it's an ongoing thing. The problem I see here is if the NBA, right, wants to be able to be involved in high schoolers, could that affect, right, their eligibility as far as the NCAA is concerned? And I think there would have to be some agreement worked out there. And I think if they did this now, they would probably try to make it so it actually does work out better.
Yeah.
But that's something that's kind of fluid and kind of ongoing, in a story that, some will pop up every now and then on it. And we'll be able to see, different clips here and there and different quotes here and there of people and their thoughts. But another thing that's coming up pretty soon is the official start of the NFL offseason. We see that you have players being franchise tagged. The Steelers apparently reportedly franchising tagged Le'Veon Bell for a second straight year because they can't come to a contract agreement. The Redskins are apparently they were going to franchise tag Kirk Cousins, and now they may not. So we'll have to see if they get signed by then. But you have NFL free agency coming up. And for a guy like Kirk Cousins, right, it's been reported that he was to 4 teams, and now today it's down to 2 in the Jets and the Vikings. Now, which makes it interesting is because the Vikings have some decisions to make. They decided not to franchise tag Case Keenum, and right, they haven't re-signed Teddy Bridgewater, and I think they still would have Sam Bradford on the roster. Now, Sam Bradford could probably move again to a backup role. But those 2 teams just kind of strike me as odd.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I see what you're saying about strike you, as odd.
Well, I think the one in the going to the Jets kind of strikes me as odd because, A, it's the Jets.
Yeah, that's the problem there.
But at the same time, right, you have to think beyond just the team and where you are, right? New York is a big city and a place where you could have the ability to make a lot of money in endorsements.
Oh, yeah.
So I think, that has to come in to play with some of these players, right? Where can I make some money off the field, off the court, whatever it might be, as well. And I just, I think Vikings would be the better situation for Kirk Cousins to go to.
Yeah.
When you have a Stephon Diggs and other good players there as well. But, it'll be interesting to see because even, today you saw that the Seahawks are apparently moving on from Jimmy Graham, who is...
That's sad.
Well, he's not old, but he's also not young by NFL standards. He's 31. But, he blew up with the Saints, and then they traded him to the Seahawks. And I remember thinking when he got traded to the Seahawks, I thought, man, that's a game changer. To give him to Russell Wilson, that's a game changer right there.
Oh, yeah.
And something that could be lethal in the sense of a prolific offense. But apparently there are a bunch of teams still interested in him. The Colts might be one. The Saints could be one, which I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up going back to the Saints. Excuse me. But if he goes back to Saints, I also wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of return to that tight end he was before he left the Saints.
Now, as a Seahawks fan, it hurts my heart that one, they aren't re-signing him, and two, that he's leaving. Because I became a Seattle fan probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and I did watch him play, and it was so exciting to watch him play. I don't think that, like you said earlier, that he was that blow-up tight end, that was at the Saints, but it was always fun to watch him. And I don't know, I just kind of feel sad, not having him there anymore. But
and that's the thing is everybody is looking for that tight end that can be like Gronk, right? That big tight end. Jimmy Graham is a big tight end, and he's mobile, and he was leading the Saints in receiving, I think, when they traded him.
I sort of feel like he's like a Gronk Jr.,
He kind of is. He's a different style player because Gronk's just a big dude.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just that different type of player, and we'll have to keep our eye here on the NFL free agency as it gets ready for this new official start of the league. The new league season starts March 14th, which is when that trade from the Redskins and the Chiefs for Alex Smith would officially be able to take place. And I'm not 100% sure. I think free agents can't sign until after then either. But there's kind of a lot going on off the field in the NFL as far as free agents signing, players being traded. Because there was talk that the Dolphins could be trading Jarvis Landry, their stud wide receiver.
I did see that as well.
After franchise tag. They were going to franchise tag him anyways, and he's apparently going to sign it, but he still could be traded. And, there had been talk that the Redskins could do that to Kirk Cousins, but we haven't really seen the end of that, which to me it's just really, I get it, you want to try to get as whatever you can out of him, but if you don't want to pay him the money that he thinks he should be making, then let somebody else go make that money. And if he can't find that money, he's going to realize it. You put an offer out there for him and say, hey, this is what we are willing to offer you. And you kind of go, if you don't like our offer, you're welcome to look for others. But this one's here when you don't find a better one, right?
Right. Well, and I just don't want him to get screwed over, really, because I kind of like Kirk.
But it'll be interesting to see where he lands. I thought the Broncos probably would have been a good spot for him.
Yeah, that's what we that we talked about. But
But
I was just kind of surprised.
And we'll have to see, and we'll probably get more on that in the upcoming days and weeks and all that, and to see where he landed. But you know what time it is now.
Random story time. Let's go.
All right, so this one,
Here we go.
our random story and, funny news story, whatever you want to call it, weird. Some of them have been gross in the past.
Some of them have been crazy.
Yes, but this time we are going to take a trip out to California.
I don't know whether to be scared or not.
And we are going to look at and kind of see the story that is more funny than anything. That Apple employees
Okay.
are apparently walking into walls at Apple's new glass, the spaceship campus. It's called Apple Park officially.
Yeah.
But apparently it's given some of the staff a headache and even worse. Because I don't know if you've seen it, and you probably have. Apple just created this Apple Park where, for $5 billion, and the outside of the headquarters, it looks like a donut. It's covered in glass, the outside of the building, but inside there's even more glass. So
Bro.
there are walls that are made of glass, meeting rooms, right? They're glass rooms so you can see into them. And apparently workers have literally been walking into the walls because they're apparently so clean at the Apple Park.
I'm just saying, like, their nose has to be so crooked.
Well, and if you're someone who has a large nose, right, you could really do some damage there.
No kidding.
But apparently the walls and doors even are so clear that
gosh.
employees don't always see the panes as they are in a hurry for business. So, I mean, I can understand if you're in a hurry going somewhere, just like you would just it just always reminds me of those I think it's Windex commercials, with the birds.
Yes.
He runs into the window. But apparently this is employees at Apple, and it opened at the beginning of the year, and it was meant to reflect Apple's values. But apparently the San Francisco Chronicle got access to 911 emergency calls that showed how serious some of the incidents have been.
Are you serious? Hold on. Did you just say 911 calls?
Yes, 911 calls.
What?
So some of them
wow.
are bleeding and slight disoriented. So like,
Wow.
some of these people must be in a hurry and smashing in these walls. So like, I would imagine they're breaking through the walls and cutting themselves with the glass, obviously.
Ow.
But then apparently some are smacking in so hard that they're bleeding, and then they're slightly disoriented and not knowing where they are.
Dang.
So maybe not such a great idea to use glass as walls at Apple. But apparently this has kind of been addressed a little bit, because they are apparently now sticking small white markers on glass panes. And since then, there haven't been any more 911 calls.
I guess good for them. I don't, like.
Well, I mean, I guess
like,
at least
so
they kind of
random.
corrected the issue, or they tried to at least. But like, I just want to watch some security tape from the Apple headquarters and watch them smacking into walls.
Exactly, bro. That has to be so funny.
Like, you could make a America's Funniest Home Video off of
Yes.
just the security tapes there,
Oh,
people
my gosh.
smashing into walls.
That'd be hilarious.
But and apparently, maybe in an unrelated development, but the company, Apple being the company, announced in February that it's planning to staff medical clinics described as independent medical practice dedicated to delivering compassionate, effective healthcare to Apple employee population at the Apple Park.
Wow.
So maybe it's because people are walking into walls, maybe not, but all we know now is that they're adding medical clinics. So maybe if you have a small cut from walking into a wall,
Oh my gosh.
you can go get that taken care of at the medical clinic there at the
How
Apple
about
Park.
you just make walls? Oh my gosh. I'm just.
Well, they
like-
want to be transparent and, you know,
How
how it all is. But, I told you before we even got on here, right? This story that I had found wasn't as, you know, as big as eating your 30,000th Big Mac, or, you know, making a plane stop because you wouldn't stop farting and people got angry over it.
Or pulling worms out of your eye.
Right, yeah.
You
So,
never know.
you know, there have been a variety of them, and, you know, try to get a nice flow between gross and just funny. I just found this one funny and had to share it with you. So
It was a great story. Like, that's funny.
But if you are listening and you have a story that you haven't heard us talk about and you want to give it to us, to submit it to us, you can go two ways. You can do it on, you can share it with us on Facebook, or you can share with us on Twitter. Now, on Facebook, you can go to facebook.com/RD Sports Report. You can also just search it there. On Twitter, we are at RD Sports Report. Try to make it real simple for everybody. You know, go like our page on Facebook. That way you can stay in communication with us. Go follow us on Twitter to be able to communicate back and forth with us. And also, whenever we get a new episode out, we make sure to let you know it's out there in case you missed it. But if you want to be able to not miss an episode, there's just one simple thing you have to do. Rylee, what is that one simple thing that they have to do?
Go subscribe.
Yeah, exactly. You just got to click the little button. It says subscribe. You hit it there. Every time one of these are uploaded, it automatically does it for you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to remember.
Nope, it reminds you.
It does it for you, right? You don't have to remember to go download it when it comes up. It'll do it for you.
Just subscribe and then go get your coffee. It's
right,
that
exactly.
easy.
It is that easy. And so after you've hit the subscribe, go ahead and go over to the star button. Give us the 5 stars, and you can feel free to write us a review and to help us grow. Also, just, you know, spread the word. You find it enjoyable, just let other people know. Tell other people. Spread the word. Because as this grows, right, everything we will do will be to also benefit our listeners and to thank you all as we go along. So you can, remember, go follow us on Facebook, RD Sports Report. Also the same thing on Twitter, RD Sports Report. Go subscribe, 5-star rating, whatever it might be. And this will do it for another episode of the R&D Sports Report.